At 17 years old, he ended up behind bars. His career could have been over before it even started. Many people had already given up on him and believed that nothing would come out of this kid. But they were wrong. Allen Iverson, a kid from a tough neighborhood who went through pressure, criticism, and legal problems. But instead of breaking down, he used it as fuel. He never changed who he was. He never tried to play by someone else's rules. He stepped onto the court and started proving to everyone that he belonged among the best. Just a few years after prison, Iverson became the face of the NBA, one of the most dangerous scorers of his generation, and won the league's biggest individual award, becoming the NBA's most valuable player. This is the story of a man who was written off before his journey even began. The story of how a kid nobody believed in made the whole world believe in him. Allen Iverson. He grew up in a poor family, and his childhood took place in one of the toughest and most dangerous neighborhoods in America. Nothing there was easy. From an early age, kids were surrounded by crime, street pressure, and problems that could easily destroy their future. Iverson's father spent time in prison, and the boy grew up without stable male guidance and support. And maybe we would have never known the name Allen Iverson if at some point he had gotten involved with crime and chosen a different path. But he found his way out, and that way out was sports. At Bethel High School, he became a true sensation. He was incredibly fast, extremely athletic, and one of the most talented athletes of his age. He was the leader of his team, won a state championship, and by his senior years became one of the most famous high school athletes in the United States. But at 17 years old, something happened that could have completely ended his career and changed his destiny forever. At 17, he was at a bowling alley with friends when a massive conflict broke out. A fight started between groups of young people. Iverson was accused of throwing a chair at one of the people involved in the fight, but he always denied being guilty. Many people believed that his own fame worked against him. He was a famous high school athlete, people were already watching him, and that was exactly why his story received so much attention. In the end, Iverson was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He was only 17 years old. At an age when young players are just beginning to transition into adult basketball, build their careers, improve their level, he found himself behind bars. It was a huge oodar for him and his family. After that moment, almost nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. Universities turned away from him, coaches stopped returning his calls, and it seemed like his basketball future was destroyed. But then one person appeared who changed his life before and after. That person was John Thompson. He was the head coach of Georgetown University, and he saw more in Iverson than just his past. He saw talent, character, and the desire to change his life. It was a huge risk. The university could have damaged its reputation because if Iverson found himself in another scandal, the consequences could have been very serious. But Iverson never made the same mistakes again. He focused on one thing only: basketball and improving himself. He became the leader of his team, won the Big East Defensive Player of the Year award, became one of the brightest players in college basketball, and earned back his status as a future superstar. And then came the NBA draft. Iverson had an incredible season in college basketball, and the 1996 NBA draft went down in history as one of the strongest draft classes in NBA history. That class included players like Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, and Steve Nash. But the first overall pick was Allen Iverson. The Philadelphia 76ers selected him with the first pick of the draft. A person who was once considered lost to society became the #1 pick in the NBA just a few years later. Iverson's arrival in the NBA looked completely different from the arrival of the stars people were used to seeing. He was a person with a complicated past. He had just come out of prison. He was still closely connected to the streets. He changed the way players were supposed to look, and he completely broke the usual standards. In the late 90s, the NBA had a certain image of what a star should look like. It was a clean appearance, professional distance, and minimal connection to the streets, hip-hop, and everything connected to that culture. But Iverson was completely different. He wore cornrows, had tattoos all over his body, earrings, chains, and baggy clothes. For many people, he became a problem. They considered him too controversial and too rebellious. He was an incredible basketball player, but at the same time, he was just as outspoken and different off the court. The NBA wanted to keep him as a player, but they didn't want to accept him as a person. On some official photos, they even removed his chains, earrings, and tattoos, trying to make his image more comfortable for the public. But Iverson was not going to stop. They wanted to change him, but instead, he changed the entire system. He represented freedom, individuality, and the right to stay true to yourself. And that had a huge impact on the younger generation. While adults were arguing about his appearance, kids were already seeing him as a hero and copying him. Young fans saw a superstar for the first time who looked like them and understood them. They started copying his hairstyle, his playing style, his attitude on the court, and even his baggy clothing. Iverson changed the idea of what a leader in the NBA could look like. In the 90s, the NBA was mostly dominated by players who relied on physical strength and athletic ability, height, powerful bodies, and size advantages. But Iverson was completely different. He was fast, agile, and unbelievably quick. He changed not only the NBA outside the court, but also the game itself on the court. And that is exactly what made him completely unique. In the late 90s, the NBA was built around physical strength. Players were extremely athletic, tall, and powerful. The entire game was focused on tough battles in the paint. Contact happened on almost every possession, and the advantage of bigger players was very noticeable. But Iverson looked like a mistake in that system. He wasn't supposed to work in that kind of environment. He was a player who stood around 6 feet tall and weighed about 160 pounds. Against him were opponents who were much taller, 40 to 60 pounds heavier, and physically stronger. Many people believed he was simply too small and that the NBA would destroy him. But he didn't just survive, he started dominating. He became one of the most dangerous offensive players in the entire league. He was one of the best one-on-one players in basketball. Almost nobody could stop him. His incredible crossovers and lightning-fast drives to the basket were nearly impossible to defend. Defenders knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to attack the basket, make a quick fake, change direction, and try to score. But even knowing that, they still couldn't stop him. One of his biggest advantages was his speed. He moved faster than most players on the court. He could change the pace of an attack in a second, and defenders simply couldn't react in time. His second greatest weapon was his explosive change of direction. He had incredibly quick crossovers that modern basketball players still use today, inspired by his style of play. The most famous example was his crossover against Michael Jordan, which became one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. Iverson proved that size does not define greatness. He became the NBA scoring champion, won the league's scoring title 4 times, earned the MVP award in 2001, and carried his team to the NBA Finals without having another superstar next to him. And he did all of this without being the biggest or strongest player on the court. He simply played his game. He showed speed, character, and the desire to win. And that is exactly why he was able to dominate among giants. And then came 2001. For Allen Iverson in Philadelphia, it was an unbelievable season. They had an incredible regular season. Iverson proved himself as an elite player and a true scorer. He won the 2001 NBA MVP award and led his team into the playoffs. In the playoffs, they defeated their opponents without too many difficulties and reached the NBA Finals. And there they faced the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers had an unbelievably strong roster. They had Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. They were one of the most dominant teams in NBA history, and standing against them was Allen Iverson, the leader of his team and the reigning NBA MVP. But he was almost carrying the entire team by himself. He didn't have any other superstars around him. You could say that Iverson was playing against the entire team. Before the series started, almost everyone doubted that Philadelphia would be able to win even one game. After all, the Lakers had an incredible roster. Shaquille O'Neal, a young and talented Kobe Bryant, experienced players, and a true championship mentality. But despite all expectations, Iverson did the impossible. Game 1 of the finals became one of the most legendary games in NBA history. Iverson scored 48 points against a team that looked unbeatable, and he managed to defeat them. He forced the Lakers to finally feel real resistance in the playoffs. Philadelphia won the game in overtime. That loss became the Lakers' only defeat during the entire playoff run that year. That's how important this game was. Iverson showed more than just basketball. He showed character and his unique style. His opponents were bigger, stronger, and more athletic, but he was faster and more talented. One of the most iconic moments of his career happened exactly in the finals, in that very series. He hit one of the toughest shots over defender Tyronn Lue. After making the shot, Iverson made his famous step-over move, walking over him. It was an unbelievable moment that showed his entire personality and influenced the entire basketball culture. In the end, they lost the finals, but Iverson and his performance were remembered forever. His game changed his legacy. Many people remembered not the winner of the series, but the person who made everyone believe that the Lakers could be defeated. He lost the finals, but earned the respect of millions of people. After the 2001 finals, Iverson remained one of the best players in the league for several more years. He continued competing for MVP awards and became a multiple-time All-Star. But unfortunately, injuries started to affect him. He got older, became less explosive, less mobile, and less quick. After almost 10 years with the Philadelphia 76ers, he parted ways with the team. The organization wanted to start rebuilding, and Iverson requested a trade. In 2006, he was sent to the Denver Nuggets, where he teamed up with Carmelo Anthony, but they were unable to achieve major success. After that, he played for the Detroit Pistons and the Memphis Grizzlies. But in his final season, he returned to Philadelphia. He only played a short stretch there, but the fans welcomed him like a true legend. In 2013, he officially announced his retirement. This story shows how a small player was able to compete among giants. He never won a championship ring, but Allen Iverson became a champion of a different kind. A champion for people who have ever felt too small for the biggest stage. Because he proved one thing: to change the game, you don't have to be the biggest. Sometimes all you need is to never be afraid.